Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning RPG Show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and filling in for Lucian is our good friend Lex over at Dink Dungeons, wearing a killer t-shirt, or shirt today, I should say.
Well, I got the Hawaiian, but then
Yeah.
I've also got
Oh, the real Ghostbusters show.
real Ghostbusters
Oh.
Slimer eating a pizza pie,
Is
you know?
that going on tonight? Are you doing
It
another?
is going on
Okay.
tonight. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
dressed. This is my outfit for that show,
Oh, okay.
basically.
So, yeah, if you guys don't know, Lex is running the West End Games D6 Ghostbusters game, like from
hmm
1986.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's
D6,
fitting.
1986.
Yeah, that's fitting. And I have sadly only caught the first episode. But it's on my like queue to watch the rest of them because I really
All
enjoyed the
right.
first episode. But now I'm curious, how is that going? Like,
Oh, it's going great.
yeah,
I mean, I've gotten really positive feedback, especially from the players, but they're like the audience regulars on that channel are also really into it.
nice.
And you can tell because Indoor Adventures, where it's hosted, and you can, if you want to watch previous episodes, there is a YouTube channel. He like basically immediately uploads to YouTube, and I think there's playlists for all his different
Mm-hmm.
shows. So very easy to check out and watch if you want to catch up. But he does a whole thing on Discord where viewers get to write in. They like join the Discord and then they can write in questions in the Discord chat during the show, and then there's an after show that's private for like patrons or something, and we
Right.
just answer the Discord chat questions. And it's great because we get a lot of interaction there. So I'm like, oh, cool. It's not only that people are interacting on Twitch, but they're also like in the community, going to the Discord, posing questions about the game,
Yeah.
and then like, yeah. So it's really nice. I really like the that community over there.
Yeah, he's built I don't want to say an empire, but he's got a really good like group of
It's
people that he's
it's
working with.
He's
So
listen, he's got 900 followers on Twitch. It's not that big, but the people who are there are very
they're
nice,
very
and I
into it.
appreciate
Yeah, and
them.
they're really nice and
Yeah.
stuff. So it's good people. It's cool. We're going to talk about lots of RPG stuff today, I suppose.
Do we
But
do that on this show? Do you like to talk about
I
RPG things?
I do. I talk about RPG things here and there.
Weird. Okay.
I don't. You probably don't listen, but lately Lucian has been getting really into Pathfinder, and so we've been having like a
Oh.
Paizo corner, and he talks about all of the Paizo news, and I am always astonished at how much they publish. Like it seems like every month it's like here's like a new huge adventure, and here's this, and we've got like a vampire book, and I don't know, like their Paizo has got the formula down to getting content out. And
Mm.
usually it's really good too. It's not just like fluff stuff that kind of falls out. But Paizo aside, I want to talk about Kobold Press and Project Black Flag. This was we had a playtest number 2 released. And you
Mhm.
told me about it, and then I said send it to me because I forgot to sign up for the email list, so I don't actually have a link.
Please, I can't get this free document. Send
Yeah.
it to me. I was like, all right.
But I read through it, and I wanted, I don't know, like you are a game designer. I'm an aspiring game designer, and this feels very 5e. I think we felt from the first Project Black Flag playtest that it was like 5e revisited in a way. What did you think about it? Like, is it heading in the right direction?
Yes. Well, it depends what your expectations are, right? I
Yeah,
think I
that's
did a
true.
whole Twitter thread where I did like a read through on this. And I finished the thread by saying, when I read this document, I get the same feeling that I got in 2009 when I first cracked Pathfinder,
Oh, okay.
right? So it's just like, okay, I'm reading this. I'm like, yes, this is the edition of D&D that I was just playing, except the balance is better. The abilities are a little more interesting. Everything seems more well thought out.
Coming
And
from
if
3.5 to Pathfinder in a way.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's so that same feeling that yeah, right. So that's what I get with Black Flag, and that's if that's what you want, then that's perfect.
Mm.
It's hitting that note perfectly if that's the song you're looking to play, right? Um, but if you're not looking for that, I can understand why you might be a little annoyed about it, right? And I think there was like some pushback online because it was too similar to 5e, I think, with the initial packet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if those people are still around and looking for it to be different, they're still gonna get real upsetty spaghetti, right? The but those people, this isn't for them because that's not what this is, right?
Yeah.
This is a retooling of fifth edition.
And
Uh, yeah.
yeah, they some other people brought it up that like well actually I think it was Project Black Flag that eventually Wizards will stop publishing 5e content just like they stopped publishing 4e and 3.5 and stuff. And so yes, you can get a lot of the PDFs, but if you still want to play 3.5, it's a little more difficult to go out and find a book. And this is a way to preserve 5th edition, kind of like what Pathfinder did, I guess, is they preserved 3.5. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. I think we talked about it on this show that when the OGL wars happened and everyone was like freaking out, and Kobold Press came in with this like Project Black Flag, it was everything we ever wanted without us having seen it. And so you build it up in your mind that it's like, oh my God, it's going to solve all these problems. It's going to be the perfect system. This is amazing. And then when you read it, you're like, oh, it's just 5e kind of again. But
It's a 5e hack.
but I think you're absolutely right. Like it does what it set out to do, which is,
Mhm.
you know, all the Kobold Press books that they've made are now going to be able to be used with this new system. So, you know, their library is good. And yeah, so I don't know. I was I felt very similar, but I did enjoy this playtest. I specifically wanted to talk about luck and how you felt about that. So in
So
Project Black Flag, you have a max of 5 points of luck, and you can spend them for a 1-to-1 to help a roll. So if I roll a 12, I could spend 2 to make it a 14, but I have to tell that before I know if it hits or misses. And Dungeon Crawl Classics has luck where there's no limit on the amount of luck you can spend, but there's a downside to using it. And this doesn't have a downside, which is usually by 5e design. Like 5e doesn't want to hurt your players or make your players sacrifice something. And I feel like luck doesn't work out if you can't sacrifice. So I don't know. What did you think of luck?
Well, okay, so I think that to our point earlier about how this is a hack of 5e, the luck thing is probably the most significant departure that you're seeing from 5e so
Yeah.
far in Black Flag. And I'm into that because I'm one of those people who like stuff that's more different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean I don't like Black Flag, but it does mean
No,
that
yeah.
like, I would prefer the DCC or Shadowdark or something like that. Where we're really going in a more different direction with the rules. So yeah, I think that luck is the thing in this packet that goes the farthest from 5e vanilla. So I'm the most into it. But I know that is not a sentiment that is shared among a lot of people. I think I was watching Mr. Tarask's video where he talked about the packet, and that was like the thing that he didn't like.
Really?
And
Okay.
I think that's because he's coming at it from the opposite perspective of me, where he's more interested in just a refined version of 5e, and since
Mm-hmm.
this is so different, it like rubs him the wrong way, and that's totally fine, right? Because different strokes for different folks. The But yeah, luck points. I'm fine with them not having a downside. I like that it's a wildly fluctuating pool of resource
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, you have a max of 5. You start with none, and then when you fail a roll, you get 1. And when you do a cool RP thing or problem solve, the way inspiration used to work,
Yeah.
you get 1 at DM's discretion. And what was the third thing? Like, oh, you finish a difficult encounter.
Yeah. Or a
So
quest or
also sort of
something. Yeah.
DM discretion. But uh so you get them there. So because of the roll failure thing, you're probably going to get them pretty frequently. And then if you get over 5, you have to roll a d4 and then it resets to that. So you're really the game is encouraging you to spend these luck
Mm-hmm.
points as much as possible.
Which, as a
See,
design, I like that. Where it's like, if I get to
yeah.
5, like, that's a fun gambling thing. I shouldn't say gambling, but like getting to, man, I could get a +5 to a roll, but like the minute something happens and I go over 5, I'm gonna have to like reset my luck, and
Mhm.
that's kind of frustrating. So
Yeah.
So I like that as a design. Like, you're encouraged to spend it, but you're also high reward if you can hoard it long enough, kind of a
Mm.
thing.
So yeah, I think that rapid fluctuation could be really fun in play because it sort of introduces this element of chaos to your decision making that I enjoy quite a bit.
Is it better than
So
inspiration?
is it better than inspiration? Yes, because anything's better than inspiration.
There you go. That
Is
is
the
the correct
short
answer.
answer. I mean, inspiration I don't hate as a mechanic, but in practical play, never remember to use it. Like it's just giving you advantage, which there's all these other things that give you advantage, so it's not mechanically interesting in a
Will
way
this
that
be
other 5e things
similar?
aren't.
Another resource to track, so to speak? Like, will people forget about it?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think they will because you're getting it so easily.
Okay.
So it's just going to come up really often, whereas
Mm.
inspiration didn't come up as often. So yeah, I think because it comes up so often, people will pay attention to it. I think the only downside to it for me is the idea that like here's another thing to track
Yeah,
on my
yeah.
character sheet, and to me personally, 5e already has too much of that.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of like, I would actually love to take the luck mechanic out of this and put it in old school essentials
Yeah.
or Durf
Hmm.
or
And that's
World of
interesting.
Dungeons. Why not?
Yeah.
I don't
And that's
know.
what I thought that too. Like, I thought this was a really cool idea, but not for 5e for some reason. Like, it just, I don't feel like a lot of players need that extra +1, +2, like, oh, I'm just inching over to hit. Whereas
Mhm.
old school essentials, like, you are very close to not hitting a lot because, like, you have a -1 in strength. So that +2 luck really helps and comes in clutch. It
Yeah,
has more value in feeling. Like,
there's less swing in 5e because you have bigger bonuses,
yeah,
right? The whole high level rogue problem where it's like you just can't fail your stealth check.
yes,
Even before you introduce the mechanic where everything is set to 10 base, right?
yes.
Even before that, it's like, okay, if I have a +8 to stealth, right? Like
Hmm.
the average roll I'm going to get on a d20 is probably a 10, which means I have an 18. So I'm like basically solving all those DC 15 rolls like all the time. Uh, there was another thing somebody had a problem with luck that I was reading about online, and it was a good thing to bring up, but now I don't remember what it is. So give me 1 second to look it up.
Oh yeah, no problem.
I have the document, but I have it. It's so small. My monitor isn't big enough. I have
So
to zoom
something
in.
about DCC luck that I really enjoy though is you have a luck stat and that will give you a plus minus bonus like a modifier. But there's a lot of times where you roll under your luck. So the act of spending your luck to be lucky in the moment causes you to have bad luck later on. And I think that's what I wanted out of this system for 5e, but going back, like, that's, I don't know, not typical of 5e design, where it's like, oh, if I use this resource in the future, I'm going to have a hard time. And
Yeah.
that I like personally, I like that idea of like, wow, I got to make a hard choice right now, or I could hold on to my cool luck and have, I don't know, all the luck points.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? Because in DCC it's like not only can you burn it, but it's also has the luck stat, which is a roll under mechanic.
yeah,
Which I notice is one of the things that always trips new DCC players up
yeah,
because they'll be like everything's roll over except for luck, which is roll under.
yeah,
And I get it. That's fair. So I totally understand why you wouldn't want to port that over wholesale because
yeah,
then
yeah.
you're going to confuse people in that way. Also, again, like let's add a seventh ability score. People are gonna be
Yeah,
like, why?
that wouldn't be good at all.
So yeah, I feel like this kind of did um port over sort of the feel of DCC luck without all of the mechanical baggage of it, which I appreciate.
Have you played
Uh,
with Lankmar at all, or Red
I
Lankmar
have
for
not played
DCC?
any Langmar
They
yet. I
have,
have a bunch of the books, but I haven't played
yeah,
it.
they have fleeting luck for that.
Hmm.
Which when certain things happen, like if you, I don't know, if you take down a monster, everybody at the table gets like a fleeting luck, or that person gets a fleeting luck, and it operates just like regular luck in DCC, but it will go away at the end of the session. And it also goes away if any player rolls a natural 1, everybody loses all of their fleeting luck, because it's like, well, that bad stuff just happened, everybody lost it. So with that, again, you're incentivized to spend it and use it to help you in battle, because it could go away, like the next character's turn could roll a natural 1 and it's all gone. And this felt similar to that, which I thought was kind of interesting, except for the, it only goes away if you hoard more than 5, but
okay, so spending luck, the thing I want to point out mechanically that I think somebody on I think it was on Twitter, maybe somewhere else, pointed out, maybe it was a comment in Mr. Track's video, but it was a very good point, which is that spending luck points says you can choose to spend your luck points in this way after you make a roll, but before the DM declares whether the roll succeeded or failed. In practice, that never works.
Yes.
Because it's like that window of time like doesn't actually exist. Like sometimes it does, but usually it doesn't.
It does if the player is knowledgeable, and like we've been at the table where people like, oh, don't say anything yet because I just rolled a 17 and I have to think about it. But that's a conscious player stopping the DM because he knows the rules, and you don't have that in everyday life, I feel.
And it's just, it's one of those things that slows the game experience down even more, which you never want to do, right? So it's either everyone's always remembering this, and then it's not a problem, but that never happens. So then it's like you have to make gameplay slower to accommodate for that rule text. Also, like, have the DM tell you what the check save DC is. And then you can be like, I rolled a 13. Oh, it's a 15. Do I want to spend luck? Because that's like that's the conversation you want to be having at the table. That to me, that's the more interesting one. Whereas the way the rule is written, it's I rolled a 13, and the game master's like, okay, I'm not gonna like. Do you want to use luck? And then the player's like, is it a DC 15? Is it not? I'm not sure. And I guess there is some merit to like that tension. But again, like it's just never something that ends up working in play without everyone constantly reminding.
Yeah, it's an awkward conversation because it's like I'm trying to read the game master's mind when we should just be I should be having a thought of like, do I want to spend this resource to make sure this outcome happens,
Yeah.
And I like that more. So I don't know. Well, I'm excited. I guess I'm excited because I just like RPGs. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes in the future. And Celeste,
were there any other big points about the playtest packet you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I just kind of like luck. Like I the fighter has the same problems that I feel I have with every fighter, which I want there to be paths based on the weapon. So like if I have a sword and shield, I should be able to do cool sword and shield things. And the maneuvers kind of do that, but it really makes everything versatile, where it's like, well, if I pick up a hammer, now I can suddenly do all these other cool maneuvers. And I'm like, what if there was a hammer path? What if there was a javelin path? And I've never, much like we have magic paths, like I can use all magic, but I'm specialized in conjuration or something. I've always felt that would be a good fix for fighters, but I've never really seen it implemented. Granted, I haven't read every RPG written, but
yeah, that's interesting because
it's always like you can use any weapon, and I'm like, what if you're just really want to be good at sword and shield, or
that's actually kind of how 3rd edition works, sort of, with feats.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
It's because as a fighter you can use every weapon, but then you're like, do I want to be really good at using long swords? Cool, here's the long sword feat tree.
Oh, okay. And the trees, yeah. So you have all the different, like you could take it multiple times to get extra things. So
yeah,
I assume.
I mean, it's not exactly like that, but it's effectively a lot like that. So yeah, so you can kind of do that in 3rd. There's just a lot of minutia. I assume in Pathfinder that there's probably options for that because it's based out in 3rd. But I was just gonna say, I feel like after reading this packet, it feels like a lot of thought went into the fighter. And I appreciate it. And while it doesn't do the thing that you're looking for, I think it does do a lot of good stuff that make fighters feel
very much so.
Feel special and good at fighting. Like you can't fight the way a fighter can fight unless you're a fighter. or you take a
Mhm.
wizard subclass that makes you powerful. No. But yeah, the martial actions I think really go a long way to doing that. That's very cool. And there's no dead levels, which is also
Yeah.
great.
The spell sword, or the Eldritch Knight 2.0. I
Yes.
played an Eldritch Knight back in the day, and
Mhm.
it's one of those where I wanted to love it, and it just was never that good compared to everybody else at my table.
Mhm.
And a lot of the fixes that the Blade Singer got, like being able to extra attack with a cantrip and then a sword attack, like I don't know why the Eldritch Knight didn't have that. Um, that was all fixed with this, and so I was like, man, I really want to play this Black Flag spell fighter. Like it seems like that's the kind of melee magic that I would be interested in. So
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I feel like the fighter very well thought out,
Yeah.
well put together. I like where Celeste is going with that. By contrast, I really didn't like the wizard very much. I
Mm-hmm.
think especially on reflection, it just there's I mentioned this in my thread, but especially the whole section on the spell book, it's just copy pasted from 5e.
Mm-hmm.
And all the spell book stuff for the wizard, in my opinion, way too complicated. Like in your game
Yeah.
uh
Great Modron March.
Modron March. I
Yeah.
kept wanting to say Rod of Seven Parts.
Rod of Seven
The
Parts Part Two.
part two, Rod of Eight Parts. Ted and I are always like, let's copy spells into our spell books.
Yeah.
And then we have to I always have to flip back to that text in the player's handbook and look at like, oh, how much is this going to cost and how many hours is it going to take?
Yeah.
And I got to do the math for that. And I was like, it really rubbed me the wrong way that was completely unchanged in Black Flag. I'm like, please, that system is terrible. Just
Yeah.
implement anything else.
And I think at my table I've done, and I don't know why. I guess we've been playing by the rules. Like you and Ted know the rules, so you're just kind of looking it up, and I'm letting you like, okay, figure it out. But honestly, if you want there to be a sliver of failure, like it should just be like, you got a new spell. Is it of a level that you could learn it? You know, because like, is it of a level that you could learn it?
Mm.
On a long rest, you learn it, or it's in your book now. Like that would be such a simpler mechanic. And if you want them to lose, the gold never really, I don't know. I don't really understand why you lose gold learning it. Like I
Gold
do
is
understand, but it doesn't. Nobody else has this problem, and it's kind of frustrating. So
Yeah,
I would
acquiring
say,
gold is not relevant to any class except wizards in
yeah.
5e.
And I would say like, no, you learn a new spell. If you want a chance for failure, then say like you have to roll over the spell level in order to succeed. So a ninth level spell is 50%, whereas like a fifth level spell you have a higher chance of learning it. Um,
So
I don't know.
so yeah, so I was annoyed that a lot of the stuff was copy pasted and not altered for wizard.
Yeah.
Wizards get magic sense, which slaps. It's just what wizards effectively already do, but now
With
they don't have
Arcana,
to take
with
the
every
spell.
GM uses Arcana in this way of like, do I sense any
Well,
magic?
yeah, or it's like everyone who's a wizard takes detect magic
Yeah.
and then casts it as a ritual. So they all effectively already have this ability.
Yeah.
So now it's just an ability they
Which
have,
is
which
what
was
it should have
good.
been. Yeah.
But then they put detect magic in as a spell in the packet. So I'm like, but then why didn't you just eliminate the spell? Uh, so that was weird. But the other thing was the subclasses are battle mage and cantrip adept.
Yeah.
And cantrip adept is just a port from another Cobalt Press thing, and it has like there's like no flavor to it at all. It is very bland. And
Oh.
I'm not interested in playing it at all. It's
L-
just like, look, I'm good at cantrips.
Ladies and
But
gentlemen,
bat
I might run out of minutes.
You should have had me
Yeah.
host the
I
meeting. I
should
have
have had you
a
host
paid
the meeting
thing. You
because
ding dong.
I thought two people could talk for up to an hour, but it says I have 10 minutes left. So
Oh, I guess it's only a half an hour now.
do
Well,
we want to drop and you send me a new link?
yeah, well, let's finish up the conversation
Okay.
on Black Flag and then we'll drop
Okay.
because that we'll do that in less than 9 minutes. So okay. So yeah, the cantrip thing feels super boring. It just makes you better at cantrips. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't care about having a subclass to be better at cantrips. And then the other one makes you a fighter wizard, which is like not bad, but with this packet, I cannot play a vanilla wizard.
Yeah, that's true.
And and for playtesting, I want to do that. Like, I
Yeah.
want to be like, oh, I'm gonna play, or maybe like a wizard that's more classical, like a divination or a
Yeah.
necromancer, and I just can't do that, and it feels like a huge misstep because this is the first playtest for wizard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they
Like
both felt
fighter,
very specialized. But the fighter,
mhm.
the one with all the maneuvers, that did feel uh
Yes,
like the type of
that feels
fighter you would want
like
to play. Yeah, you would want to play
classic
test.
fighter. Because
So,
it seems like they're eliminating champion fighter and combining it with battle master, and
mhm.
that's what the new person is. So cool. Yeah, that's basically a vanilla fancy fighter, whatever. And then you have fighter wizard. But
Yeah.
yeah, with wizard, it's just cantrips or fighter wizard, and I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. So
Mhm.
I was a little annoyed. They also added rituals as like a new spell category, which
Yeah.
again is like it makes sense, but now you have made the class more complicated. And
Yeah.
I was like, please, it's already a complicated class. Just make it a little less complicated.
Yeah.
So,
I think I've always wanted every spell to be able to be cast as a ritual.
mm,
Um like if I want to spend an hour to cast a fireball, I can do that without expending a spell slot. And maybe there's something broken about that. Uh, but if you do that, and then every spell just has a casting time, I think players would naturally figure out which ones they want to cast as a ritual, because it's like, well, this has an hour casting time. I don't really need, I could add 10 minutes to it and cast it as a
mm,
ritual. It's like, there you go. That's what you need.
yeah.
But maybe that
But
doesn't
that's my
work in
big stuff.
practice. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, spell levels are called rings
circles.
now.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And
Arcane circles
spell,
and divine circles. Yeah. And there was
yeah.
one
Well,
feat that was, they're calling feats talents, that was
mhm.
like you can specialize in a school of magic. And then you would get like a +1 to your necromancy attacks and spell checks and stuff if you took that, which felt like, oh, I'm specializing in a specific type of magic. And then I was thinking, I'm like, I really feel like that talent should just be applied to a subclass. Like if I am a necromancer, all of my necromantic spells should have that +1, as opposed
Yeah.
to taking a feat that does that, or a talent.
Hmm.
But I don't know. It's also playtest. Everything could change, but it is interesting and fun to
True.
talk about. So,
Yeah.
um, don't go away. I'm actually gonna leave the stream up, so you'll be able to hear me. But we're gonna end the Zoom call and then rejoin so that we can talk longer than 6 minutes. So, are
Great.
you'll send me one, I assume?
Yeah, I'll send you a link.
Okay, cool. We'll be back in I'll still talk to you. So here we go. Yeah, see, I'm still here. You just can't see anything. That's how it's working. And then our good boy Lex will send us a Zoom call. I need to buy Zoom, guys. That's what has to happen. It's ridiculous. It's just that Lucian always has Zoom, and he has Zoom through his office. And so there we go.
There we go.
And we're back. Welcome back, everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, I cast invisibility. That's a good joke. I like that because everything went dark and I was gone for a little bit. Let's talk about Shadowdark RPG. I think I need to back this now just because it's so overperforming. But
You're getting FOMO.
Yeah, I'm getting the FOMO. I'm feeling it. But Shadowdark RPG is a OSR 5e hack. It looks really cool. It's written by the Arcane Library, and Kelsey, who is the Arcane Library, has a YouTube channel, and she's been working on this for a long time. And this might be for a lot of reasons, but it could be the first OSR Kickstarter to go over 1 million. And I don't know if that's true, but I was kind of like thinking about it. I was looking at stuff because I know like
Mothership?
the Avatar game. I don't think Mothership went over 1 million. Like, I don't know. I do want to back this up. I want to go like look at it later. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But as of right now, it's at $930,000. Like it's got 11 days to get to like 1 million. And so I don't know. Oh man, this is crazy. I looked at a couple of the things about this, and I like what I see. Um, it's I don't want to.
Um,
I'm not trying to be rude to Kelsey because she's a very good designer. The art looks really cool and all this other stuff. But I just backed other things like the Black Sword hack and a lot of other stuff, and I'm kind of looking at this and I'm like, why? What is setting this apart from other things? So I
uh,
don't know. Can you
okay,
answer that?
I'm gonna drop some facts on you. Mothership did 1.4 million.
Okay, I was
Yeah,
wrong
so it
then.
was bigger. You could
Is
make the
Mothership
argument
OSR or is it its own
that I was
thing?
gonna say you could. So I feel like Mothership is OSR, but it's not fantasy, right?
Yeah,
So it's so maybe this is the first OSR fantasy thing. Because yeah, we look at Goodman Game stuff, which usually do very, very well
yeah.
in the like OSR fantasy space, and they don't do anywhere near a million, right?
Hmm.
I think like Dungeon Denizens is their best performing one. It's like
Yep.
300 or
It's
250K.
over 300 now.
Okay.
It might be 350. They actually, I had the Goodman game designers on the show last week, and we talked about it.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Oh, what a
Uh,
step down this week.
but
God.
even then, that Dungeon Denizens is a 5e product as well, and
That's
so
true.
I don't
Yeah.
know. And Monty Cook Games, that I don't think they've broken a million with a lot of their Kickstarters, but their highest grossing ones are 5e compatible stuff as well. Like, Arcana of the Ancients did very, very well. And for Monty Cook Games, but that was like a 5e tie-in. And then they always kind of make, like, I don't know how well Tolis did, but that was 5e. And then they make their Cypher System version kind of
Mhm.
like, because we already have the art, we have all this other stuff. We might as well make a Cypher version to support our own game. So,
Yeah. So I think the reason for Shadowdark's success is a confluence of things.
yes.
One of them is the OGL debacle. And I'm not ranking these among more or less important. Just put that out there. But I think one of them is the OGL debacle, and everyone was like, I want something that I can identify as D&D, but is not 5e, and that is easy to digest. And I think this definitely does that. Two is I think the OSR community is a strong community that supports each other, and that's definitely part of it. Three, I think there's really good design sense in this book, not just in terms of the writing, but in terms of the layout,
Yep.
the way the character sheets are put together, and the presentation of materials, including physical materials. So you've got the game book, but you've also got a DM screen that looks really nice. You've got 3 zines that can come with it. You've got character sheets with gorgeous art on them, and it's all like really well packaged, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of it. And I think also Kelsey Dion, the Arcane Library, has spent years really well cultivating her audience through some really well written adventures for 5e and a really good like email list and just being
That's
like
true.
consistently putting out solid work and developing a fan base. So I think it's like all of those things came together at exactly the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, and this game had a very good advertising budget. I think I'll also mention that.
Yeah.
That is important.
Yeah.
Uh,
I actually talked to her, and I think she spent, well, I shouldn't say because I don't know if that was privileged information, but she spent a lot of money
mhm.
on advertising. And it works because I see this popping. And part of it is that it's almost at a million. And so then I think Kickstarter is like, okay, let's talk, bring it up to the front page a little bit more. But I'm
Mhm.
seeing it all over advertising wise.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I see it on Instagram all the time.
yeah.
See it on well, I'm not really on Facebook very much, but yeah, I see it on Instagram, I see it on Twitter.
I don't know. Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy did 290,000 of a $20,000 goal, and then I look
Mm,
at Kelsey's game at Shadowdark, and it's like $950,000.
right?
I'm like, oh my gosh, or 930 or something. But I do want to reiterate, she's a very excellent designer. It looks really, really cool. And I'm happy with a lot of people who are going to take it and start playing. But I just look at a lot of these like I don't know, games that I really enjoy too, like Morkborg and you don't see that same $1 million level, but maybe this is just 5e adjacent enough.
Oh yeah, what did
So
Morkborg do? Did you look that up?
I did not. but I'm
I'm
curious
I'm
now.
curious. I mean, I know it didn't make a million, but I'm curious how much that one made.
Oh, there's too many Morkborg supplement adventures to find
Too
through all of
many
these.
people have made. Oh, okay, I found the original one, I think. Uh, almost 500K. Or no, that's in their strange European currency. I don't know what that is in US dollars. I assume it's not that different. Let me check.
Oh yeah, and someone,
Uh,
thank you, James. James posted that Tolus was at $780,000. But again, that was like a 5e product for the most part. So,
oh, okay. If I calculated this properly, I don't know if I did. I punched it into Google. I don't know
well,
how
then you didn't
correct Google
calculate it
was.
at all. Google did.
I didn't calculate it at all. Apparently, the Morkborg made 489K in Swedish krona, which comes out to 45K in US dollars.
Yeah, $45,000. Yeah, all those free league stuff I buy, it's looks
Mhm.
really weird on your credit card when it's like you were just charged like 4,000, and I'm like, what? And then it's like, oh,
What?
$60. Okay.
Um, yeah, that's interesting because, like, wow, that's so different. In terms of exchange rate and in terms of side tangent about Morkborg. Lots of people have done very successful Morkborg Kickstarters, and I would hazard a guess that several people have done six Kickstarters for Morkborg supplements that have done more money than Morkborg did.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, because my friend, my voice is leaving me.
Yep.
My friend did a Morkborg Kickstarter 6 months ago
Was that
or something.
Cyborg or the
No, there
no?
was no, he didn't back one, he did one.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah.
I remember it had a catchy name. So
Oh, Castaway
oh,
was the name
okay,
of
it
it.
was the
Yeah,
pirate
which
one.
was yeah, it's not Pirate Borg, but it's Pirate Borg.
Okay.
Uh, but he did 30 or 40K.
Yeah.
So he did like almost as much as Morkborg did when it first kickstarted, which is very interesting to me. So it's interesting how that's grown,
Mm-hmm.
right? But yeah, I what were we talking about? I went on my Morkborg side tangent.
Oh,
I'm
just
sorry.
OSR RPG is reaching 1 million. So that
Yeah.
sailed
So
away.
I don't that's very cool for Kelsey,
I know.
and
Did you back it? I think you said you did.
I did. I
Yeah, I'm
had
gonna
to
back
back
it.
it
Yeah.
digital because I'm too much of a peasant to back physical because it was very expensive.
Yeah.
It's nice though. It's
I'm a
probably
sucker
really
for the
worth
physical
it.
copies, but I'm getting to the point now where a lot of my print on demands from drive-through are now falling apart. And I was actually
Oh.
reading on how to do bookbinding about a week ago because I'm like, I kind of want to like save these books in some way, and the drive-through print on demand glue is not holding up to
Mm.
the wear and tear of actually using a book. So, but yeah,
Yeah, I believe it. Oof.
D&D
Um,
Honor Among Thieves early screening tomorrow. I have my ticket. Are you going?
I'm not going tomorrow.
Oh.
I continue to be too much of a plebeian. I am going. I'm going when it normally shows up, which is in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But so I was actually, because I don't want to support WotC or
Yeah.
whatever movie studio is putting it out. I was almost gonna like torrent it out of spite, which I will do. I do that for Marvel movies a lot because I'm like, you don't deserve my money, big
But I'll still
corporation,
watch you. I don't
but
know
I'll
if
still
that.
watch it. Yeah. The but then I was like, not only does Honor Among Thieves look quite good, but also there are, in recent years, I have discovered more independently owned movie theaters in my area,
Mhm.
and I like to go and support them whenever I get the chance because, they deserve it. I do the thing where they also have like much cheaper movie tickets, and then concessions are still expensive, but because I want to support them, I'll like buy the movie ticket and then just buy a ton of food
Yeah. Well, and
because
that's
I'm just
where
like,
movie
here,
theaters
have my
make their
money.
money. So, like
Yeah.
for sure.
So
I
it's
think I
so
think when
I'm planning to do that.
yeah, when the pandemic hit, I think a lot of movie theaters were showing like how like they make pennies for every screening of a movie. Like movie
Hmm.
theaters really only make money from candy and oversized and
Yeah.
soda and popcorn and stuff, which is too overpriced in my opinion. But no, I love my independent movie theaters too. I think our independent movie theater doesn't show mainstream movies. They show the like indie art movies.
Yeah.
Or like other weird ones. Like we went and saw What We Do in the Shadows there. You know, they'll show fun
Oh,
movies
that's
like
great.
that. But that one didn't
Yeah.
hit like, you know, Regal Cinemas and AMC and stuff like that.
Well, that's
So.
the thing, right? I ran into that problem a lot too when I was first having this thought process of, oh, if I'm gonna go to the movies, I want to go to an independent one. And there are several independent ones in my area. I live in Massachusetts, so you know, that's more of a thing up here, I think. And there are a bunch. There are like four within driving distance of me easily. But yeah, most of them would just be like, oh, we're screening two movies and they're both art house movies. And sometimes, yeah, you want to see one of those, but not often. I don't often find myself being like, oh, I really want to see this art house film. So then
It's a
I
Friday
found
night.
one
I think I'll go
that's
check out The Whale. That's what I need. Is a
right,
nice,
right.
nice tear-filled, awful feeling for my evening.
It's a beautiful film, but
Yeah,
like
so
I don't
good.
want to start my weekend with it, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, then I found one that's like a little more of a drive, but they do mainstream stuff. And they're independently owned and the owners are really nice. So I'm just like, yeah, go there all the time. Every chance I get, especially now that the weather's getting nicer here. So it's like a really pleasant drive to get up there. It's like a half hour, 45-minute scenic. And I get there, spend some money at the independent theater, say hi to the people who work there that I now know, and see a nice movie. And the movie becomes the least great part of it, honestly, but it's just nice to do.
Yeah.
So that's how on the 30th or like that weekend.
Yeah.
That's how I'm gonna see.
Well,
Autumn
I'm
Months
excited.
before.
I think this will be. Everyone was comparing it to like Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff, where it's going to be like kind of like a funny buddy, and it's going to have Marvel movie vibes. And if I'm honest, I think I'm getting Marvel movied out. And
For
some
sure.
of the later, some of the more interesting Marvel movies are the ones that are going in a different direction. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's different. So I was a little sad this is kind of following that formula, but it makes sense because they want a nice, safe movie and maybe they'll be able to do more interesting stuff later. That being said, so many people are going to be interested in D&D if this takes off. And I think that's a blessing for everybody who plays and runs campaigns because you'll have hopefully more players. This early screening was through Amazon Prime. So if you have a Prime membership, you could like buy a ticket to this 2:00 screening on Sunday, and then I assume that's just like a perk, kind of a thing. I don't know. I didn't really understand, but I bought 3 tickets, and me and my wife and my friend are going to go, and it should be a lot of fun. We're really excited to see it. And then I'll have a week to make content about a movie before the general public sees it. So that's another.
There you go. That's why you're doing it, because you work that content creator game.
I gotta see if Zastam is actually going to be the big bad villain or if it's just random Red Wizard number 37. So
It better be Zastam.
just saying, I did see in the trailer there is the 1980s cartoon kids make a brief appearance. And then I heard that there's probably a Critical Role reference as well, which my dream, and I'm not even a big Critical Role fan, but I really want those actors to be dressed up in their Vox Machina outfits, sitting at a tavern, like arguing or playing D&D, like, but as their characters, and then just have them like in the background. I think that would be really awesome. So
That would be great.
we'll see.
Or they do the thing where like Chris Pine is walking across the bar and he like bumps into Grog.
Yeah. And then they have like a confrontation, and it's like,
Yeah.
I would love that so much. Or there's a trinket bear hanging out outside, and they're like, why is this bear here? Like, what is going on? Did you ever watch the Acquisition Incorporated shows, or do you follow those at all?
I don't really follow Ack Inc. I'm sorry, and I don't have the book or anything.
No,
it all looks
you're
fun
fine.
and interesting, but I'm not up on that info.
I was watching Ack Inc. Back in the 4th edition days, and I just really liked it. And they kind of pioneered this whole live performative art RPGs that everybody seems to love right now. Like, let's go to a packed theater and watch some people play D&D on a stage. It'll be fun. I was curious because they're doing a Kickstarter to do a 10 episode show. And I backed it because I like Acquisitions Incorporated. But for being Penny Arcade and for being Acquisitions Incorporated, I was surprised this wasn't fulfilled day one. I don't know why, because I thought there was a lot of love going into this. There's not a lot of reward other than a free show that everyone will be able to experience once it gets made. But they still haven't hit their goal yet, and I think they will. They're at 220,000 of 250, and they've got 20 days to go. But it's only 10 episodes, and it'll be available for anybody who wants to listen to a podcast or watch a YouTube show. But it's just one of those things. Like, they didn't have I don't know. I was just curious. This was interesting because it makes me wonder if Kickstarter is changing into, I want a product and I'm willing to kickstart to receive that product. But I don't necessarily want to kickstart to make something happen. And maybe I'm too in the publishing mindset where I'm looking like, yeah, I want a book. And it's like, I need capital to help make this book. And so people are like, I'll front the money if you promise me a book. But in this sense, it reminds me kind of the Critical Role animated series, where it's like, once that got made, everybody could watch it. But they were still able to raise a ton of money for the animated series. And I look at Acquisitions Incorporated, who I always kind of held on a similar level as like the people that helped build streaming, and I find Jerry Holkins very funny. And then it didn't happen. I don't know. Like, this didn't blow up like I thought it would.
I think your commentary on product versus experience is probably pretty astute. I think another way to look at it is the wants of the audience currently, and it's just like, and we compare it to like Shadowdark, right?
Yeah.
And you think about the OGL debacle, and Shadowdark is the thing where people who are upset at 5e can be like, here's a different thing. Whereas Ac Inc. is like, here's more 5e stuff. And I could see the general members of the community being like, I'm not interested in more 5e stuff. WotC has burned me, so now I'm just gonna like do something else. That actually makes me think I should look up what other 5e products are doing, and I know that Ghostfire is constantly making 5e products.
Yeah.
I can test my theory here.
And on the coattails of this, though, too, while you're looking that up, there was another Kickstarter called Tabletop News by Watch Tabletop, which is a bunch of LA people who got together, and they're trying to raise money to do a web show, I think, of like, here's what's happening in the world of tabletop. So all kinds of board games, Magic the Gathering, all like card games and stuff, but as well as RPGs. And they have some like fun people. Like, I like Becca Scott, and there's a couple other really people in there, but I looked at this and I'm like, I don't even really see the need for something like this. And then going through it, there's no reward other than the show, which will be available for everybody to watch, because that's what you want with a show. And they're 26 days to go, but they need over $100,000 left to reach their goal, and I'm not so sure they're gonna do it. I don't know.
You know what? I looked up some other 5e Kickstarters, and they're doing very well. So I am going to defer to you that it's product versus experience. Okay. I think you're probably right about that. But yeah, to the Tabletop News thing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that niche is already filled. Not that it's bad to have competition, right? I love Dicebreaker. Dicebreaker feel very scrappy and independent to me, which is why I always want to support them, right? And they're very nice people. I've talked to them a couple times. So yeah, competition isn't bad. I don't not want these people to get involved in doing this project, but it does feel like not necessary, and it feels very, very polished and produced.
It feels very LA to me, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think
but I don't need it, right?
I don't need it.
I don't. That's not something that's important to me.
I'm fine sending information to Ted for him to research and then put out a video 30 minutes later, and I can watch it. That's kind of how I feel, where I'm like, Nerd Immersion does this really well. There's a lot, like Dicebreakers does this really well. in the broader sense of
Mhm.
tabletop, whereas like, but I don't know, it's one of those interesting things where I feel like they're trying to fill a niche that, or they're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
and it does look really polished and stuff, but I don't think a lot of people care, and there's so many bloggers out there. And I
Hmm.
think that was, I watched their video, and that was one of the things, is they said like, there's all this information but it's so difficult to find, we're gonna collect all of it and congeal it into a show for you. And I'm like, yeah, but nobody's asking you to do that. Like,
Right.
nobody
Like,
wants, nobody cares about that. Like, they're fine reading the 4 or 5 blogs that they enjoy. I don't know. So
yeah, yeah, I think you're right that from the perspective of the people making this, they wish there was this thing, but they are the minority of the people in the community because most people in the community are fine going to different sources.
yeah.
Um, or just having their one source like Ted who will cover a bunch of different things. Let's just talk
Yeah.
about Ted. The But no, I was gonna say I think Dicebreaker, to bring them back
There
up,
we go.
walk the line really well of something that is, oh yeah, there you go. There's something that is feels very authentic and personal, but is produced like just well enough, right? Because
Yeah.
they have multiple people on staff. They do like fun produced videos, but they look like something you could produce yourself if you just like had a little money and the right tech,
Hmm.
right? So it feels super authentic. And I think that, and that's what makes them feel so scrappy, and that's why I think they nail that. They're very endearing in that way. But with this, it's like so well produced that it feels like, you know what vibe it gives me? A freaking one of like the back when E3 was still a thing, one of like the E3 like dev conferences, right? It's like
uh
people in front of a green screen in
what was
nice
the
outfits.
what was the video game channel, like XPlay, like what was
Oh, the
that?
G4
G4.
channel?
It feels kind of
Yeah,
like that, where they're like, we're
it
gonna tap
does.
into gamer culture, and we're gonna
Hmm.
make a gaming centric like news show for video games. And I was like, that didn't do the best, you know. I liked those people, like Morgan Webb was cool and like things like that, but it they were, again, like, I don't know, people were fine waiting for Nintendo to do their Nintendo Direct or something, rather than like,
Yeah.
we'll react to the Nintendo Direct. I don't know.
Hmm.
And with YouTube now, there's so many people that could do this, and I think you're right. There's an aspect of like Dicebreakers where they look like they're filming in their basement sometimes, and so it has a relatability factor. Whereas this feels like a television show that, although those people are very nice, they feel unrelatable. And maybe that is from me personally, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Here's okay, here's the other thing I wanted to bring up about this that I remembered. It reminded me because we see all these different people who are like on air talent, but they're not like huge names. Like they're not a Matthew Mercer
Yeah.
or what have you. But they're people that like in the community, you'll be like, "Oh, I've heard of this person,"
Yeah.
right? Like I've seen them before
Some
on
of them are on
something.
Dimension 20, if you watch
Yeah.
that. Some of
Yeah, yeah,
them
yeah.
have done like Will Wheaton's tabletop show stuff. Some of,
Hmm.
like, they're working in LA, they're nerds.
They're they're like the B list, right? Or maybe C. So they're not bad, but they're not like top tier, right? And this is funny. It made me think of a Kickstarter from a while back that I hate watched for a while that was about a D&D cookbook, right? And I think I've talked to you about this before. I was so mad about it because it was like let's have real world recipes but it's D&D stuff, and it wasn't like the Heroes Feast thing because that was like a real official product. It was like a third party thing.
But it was like Joy of
And
Monster Cooking. Like,
yeah, but it
yeah.
was like Joy of Monster Cooking. I didn't hate it because it was like Joy of Monster Cooking. Listen, I made Joy of Monster Cooking. I didn't hate it because it was like that.
Okay.
I had a grudge against it because my co-author for Joy of Monster Cooking, a best-selling book about doing this thing that this Kickstarter was supposed to be about, they asked for writer submissions and he submitted, and he was like, "Look, I made this book that's exactly like what you do, and it sold really well. Here's my writing on it that people obviously like and sold." And they didn't hire him, and they were completely uninterested in his work. And then I looked at who they did hire, and it was all B and C list like popular writers on Twitter.
Gotcha. So they're going for the
And
name recognition rather
they
than,
were going for,
yeah.
yeah. And I got really annoyed about that because I'm like, none of these people have done a project like this. And then the project didn't fund. And I was like, that's because you can't try to run your project off of name recognition because that often doesn't work. You really have to have that core thing be something people really, really want. And I feel like this tabletop thing is falling into that trap where these are great people and they have name recognition, but it feels like that's what's trying to carry the project. And you can't carry a project on that unless you have an A-list person, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like a Matt Colville. Like Matt
Yeah.
Colville could be like, "This is my project," and then it would fund.
Yes,
But
exactly.
that's because
Yeah.
of who he is. Yeah.
But then they're not going to spend, they don't have the money to spend for something like that, so they're going with this. Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think yeah, I think we're all kind of right in our assessment here and there, but like uh I don't know. That got me thinking about monster books and how many companies have contacted me to be like, "Will you write us a monster and submit a monster for our monster book, just so my name could be associated with the Kickstarter so that it would do better?" And I'm always like, "I'm not really a design. I mean, I don't know. Like I could, but like I would much rather you hire somebody who like makes and plays good monsters and has those creative ideas. And I might not recognize the name of the monster designer, but if you show me a really cool monster, I'll be like, oh, that's awesome. I want that. Rather than, Jordan made this. And I'm like, okay. Like, but
Yeah.
a
Who's
lot of
like,
them will do that. They'll contact you. And I say that because like Dungeon Denizens, like Goodman Games contacted me, but they just wanted an idea. And I've noticed they haven't really been throwing my name around. So I kind of like that they're not banking on celebrity stuff. Not that I'm a celebrity. Like, there's 36 people watching. We're good.
There you go. Yeah. But no, I think that, and to be fair, like having that as a side thing, having that name recognition attached is great.
Yeah,
But
but you
again, your
can't bank on
core
it.
thing
Yeah.
needs to be something else. It can't be that.
Too
So,
fun.
so yeah, I think that's a pretty, I think that's a good assessment. I do hope they fund though, because again, they seem like they're very nice people.
And that's the thing is we talk about this. I don't wish them ill will at all. And if they do fund, they could be doing some really interesting stuff. But I also think it's interesting to talk about this as like, I don't know, like, is this a good thing? And this was a good conversation. Lucian has a habit of, I'm going to disagree with Jordan just to make the conversation more interesting. And I'm like,
Yikes.
I don't think you understand what we're talking about sometimes. I love Lucian. Lucian, you're probably not listening, but you're awesome. But that was a good talk. So that's our show for the most part. Lex, do you have anything you want to plug before we take off?
Stop by twitch.tv/indoor adventures tonight at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time and check out the really real Ghostbusters in Terror Vision, my ongoing Ghostbusters RPG stream. It's a lot of fun. There's audience participation stuff. You can spend channel points to affect the game, which is great. And it's just a fun like comedy. It's very like obviously it's Ghostbusters and everybody knows the vibe of that, but it is specifically like the real Ghostbusters 80s cartoon.
Yeah.
It like heavily inspired by that kind of feel. So it's very cartoony and fun, and people have really been enjoying it. So check it out.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then if you want more Lex as well, you should go subscribe to the Jocular Junction, my second channel, because we do a lot of reviews there. We haven't lately, but we will. We're getting back on the wagon. It's awesome.
Yeah, we have a schedule. We're figuring it out.
And we just finished a DCC funnel with Bob Worldbuilder and a couple other people, and that was a lot of fun. So, yes, thank you so much for coming over here, Lex. That was a lot of fun hanging out with you. Kind of stepping up last minute, so I super appreciate it. And tune in next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning RPG Show. Take care. Bye, everybody.